In this segment, we will be talking about a stingy person, a real life penny pinching individual, a real life miser. So much so that this person ended up in the Guinness Book of Record as the greatest miser. This person is Miss Hetty Green. Now, you tell me in the comment section if you know anyone that is far more miserly than this lady in history. Before we talk about how frugal she was, let's talk about her background a bit. Born Henrietta Holland on November 21st, 1834, in Bedford, Massachusetts, to parents Edward Mott Robinson and Abby Holland, her family were prominent Quakers and were quite wealthy and is considered one of the richest families of that time. They amassed most of their wealth through the whaling industry and profited tremendously from trading with China. For those of you who do not know what whaling is, it is spelled Whaling. Now, whaling dates back in the US to the 17th century, primarily in the New England region. Now, it consists of producing three types of raw materials. They are whale oil, whale bone, and spermaceti oil. Now, whale oil was used to lubricate machinery during those times, especially of the Industrial Revolution era. I will create another video that talks about the whaling industry. Again, Hetty's family were involved heavily in this field and had a vast amount of whaling fleet. The business was passed down from her grandfather Gideon to her father Edward Holland. She was raised in a strict Quaker household and was taught financial literacy at a very tender age by her family, especially her grandfather Gideon. She moved to live with him and her aunt when she was only 10 years old and would oftentimes read the Wall Street papers and other financial papers to him due to his poor eyesight. At 8 years old, she opened her first bank account from monies she would received as gifts. At 10, she attended a Quaker school in Sandwich, Massachusetts. Hetty attended a school also in Boston. As she became a young woman, she became the bookkeeper for her family's businesses. According to Hetty's interview with Dorothy Dix, who was a very prominent journalist at that time, she became a bookkeeper for her family's business was mere inevitable, as the traditions and mentality of most wealthy family is to maintain and to add to their wealth. Hetty said, I quote, I was forced into business. I was the only child of two rich families, and I was taught from the time of 6 years that I would have to look after my property. End of quote. As you would imagine, Hetty was going against the female assigned roles of her time, in that there wouldn't have been many women who were deeply involved in their families' businesses. Most were housewives, trophy wives, cotillion women, but Hetty was busy minding businesses. Therefore, she went against societal norms, especially women in her societal strata. While women in her category were busy titivating themselves, Hetty cared less about her looks, and she did so unapologetically. She would oftentimes be seen in old, tattered, outdated clothes. Now, you know Hetty could have afforded any latest styles at that time, but but was just not in that frame of mind, nor did she crave to be in those things. Her aunt and mother grew sick of Hetty not attiring herself accordingly, and how she had become so entrenched in the men's world of finance. They thought she was just lessening her prospects of marriage. So much so they became scared for her and sent her off to NYC, which is New York City, right? So she could, they really wanted her to mingle with the upper crust and mingle with women in her category and see how these women were moving, they were flexing, they were hype. You know what I mean? They wanted to allow her to see how women in her strata, in her category, were living. Well, Hetty moved to New York City reluctantly. And also, too, she was forced to move to NYC to find a husband. She attended most of the high profiled high society events. But instead of Hetty trying to find a husband and mingle and be a part of that whole high society glamour team, she usually would eardrop or listen to the men speak about stock market issues and other financial issues. She went to New York with $1,200, which is equivalent to $44,882 today. She went back to Massachusetts without a man, and she only spent $200 out of that $1,200. So that $200 will approximately equate to $7,480 in today's society. So you can see her priorities weren't there. She did not care too much to intertwine herself into that types of lifestyle. Now, as she got older and so forth, she had become so tightly entrenched in the Wall Street and stock market world. So Hetty gained few fortunes, right, throughout her life, from her mother who died and left a handsome amount of money to her aunt as well, her father who left her $6 million, which is equivalent to $100 million today. As she became tied in the Wall Street world, she was called the Witch of Wall Street, not because of anything evil that she has done, but because the way how she had tired herself. She was just given that name because she wore a lot of black dresses, and they were long and dreary, no kind of look to it, didn't look attractive. Her cloak looked so much similar to that of a witch, hence they called her the Witch of Wall Street. Some believe she dressed like this because she was so cheap, while others believe it was her Quaker background that talked about dressing very plainly. Now, Hetty invested in real estates. She invested in railroads and natural resources. She really believed in buying things cheap, hold on to them until people want these things, they're in high demand, and then sell high. She said, I quote, I buy when things are low and nobody wants them. I keep them until they go up and people are crazier about getting them. That's it. I believe the secret of all successful business. End of quote. So therefore, she believed in buying cheap and sell high. She bought homes that are about to be foreclosed upon. She even lent money to government. Can you believe that? So during the 1907 recession, she loaned money to the city. Right? Hetty was so cheap. Let's talk about Hetty's miser ways now. Now, one, Hetty hardly changed her clothes. Only when it was worn out, she just entirely wore black outfits all the time. And she changed her clothes when they're just worn out and tattered. That's when she usually changes her clothes. Now, we already know Hetty had a lot of money. She could literally, wore very nice clothes and didn't even have to repeat any of her garments. But this is how cheap this lady was. She refused to buy anything new. She vehemently refused to pay for heat and hot water. She thinks those things were quite unnecessary. So, not even what she was so cheap, she didn't even want hot water. She refused to pay for it. She ate eggs, onions, and dry oatmeals. Okay, Hetty, you could have buy some chicken or something. She ate pies that cost 2 cents. Hello? She refused to pay rent to conduct her own business. She sewed. This is going to sound very weird. Now, she sewed her panties when she was 16 years old. So she made her own undergarment when she was 16 years old. And it is said that she never changed them until she died. Now, that is cheap. Isn't that cheap? You tell me in the comment section what you think. She was married to a millionaire, just like herself, and kept eating leftover cakes. It is also said that she argued every day to get free bones for her dogs. What? Hetty rented an apartment in Hoboken, New Jersey, rather than buying herself a beautiful mansion or just an ordinary home. Hetty died at 81 years old in New York City. The cause of her death was stroke after an argument with her maid because the maid had asked her for an increase. Now, one of the things that made Hetty stand out as one of the greatest miser of all times is the fact that her son had a broken leg. So he broke one of his legs, and she refused to get him proper medical attention. What she was trying to do was to get him help, but free assistance, free medical assistance. And this put a major delay on his attention. And as a result, he had to amputate one of his legs. This is how cheap Hetty was. She refused to spend on her own child. But besides her being cheap, now she donated to many causes, hospitals, many charities. Again, she gave money to the government during the recession of 1907. But besides that, she was absolutely a cheapskate. She did not spend any money whatsoever on herself. Now, again, tell me in the comment section if you know anyone that is cheaper than this billionaire lady. Well, at the time, she was a multimillionaire. Her money now today would equivalent to $2.3 billion in today's world. Now, this was a lady of means. She didn't have to do what she did. She did not want to spend any money. She was indeed a real life miser? Now, tell me what you think in the comment section. Again, please like, share, and subscribe. And let's chat in the comment section.